chassis, but then completely redesigned by renowned coach builder Ghia. Famed for their beautiful and often European creations, Ghia was the perfect choice for helping Cadillac produce a top-flight coupe for the luckiest customers with the deepest pockets. This was never to be an exercise of mass production, as only 2 examples were ever planned for production, both of which survive today in superb condition. Underneath the gorgeous coach-built bodywork is an everyday Cadillac Series 62, so at least parts are easily available when it comes to the service and maintenance of these unicorn classics. Much of the history of these 2 cars is unknown, as virtually no in-period documentation exists today. However, it's largely believed that one car was delivered new to John Perona, who was the owner of Manhattan's El Morocco nightclub. This is easily believable, as he was a big fan and frequent customer of Ghia cars. The other car is thought to have belonged to actress Rita Hayworth, although no concrete evidence exists to put her behind the wheel, so it may just be a rumor. Being a luxurious Cadillac from the 1950s, there could only ever be one type of engine under the hood, and naturally, that would be a V8. Specifically, a 5.4-liter V8 which packs a 210 horsepower punch, in addition to producing 3 30-pound-feet of torque. In terms of performance specs, such things as 0 to 60 times and top speeds are unknown, given the limited production and intended purpose of this rarest of Cadillacs. However, it's worth noting that 210 horsepower was an awful lot in the early 1950s. This was a time when 100 horsepower was something to brag about. So while the figure seems low for today's world, it was an industry-leading figure at the time. As an example, the stylish and sporting Maserati 150 GT Spider from the mid-1950s had no more than 130 horsepower to play with. Besides, these cars were meant to impress in another way, by simply looking incredible. If anything, the curvaceous lines and striking proportions of the Series 62 Ghia Coupe looks even more impressive today than it would have in the 1950s. Despite only commissioning 2 cars, Cadillac decided that certain features should differ between both examples. Or perhaps the paying customers did. We can't be sure, as the evidence simply isn't there. Either way, they are both easily distinguished from one another, thanks to a selection of unique features. One car, which now resides at the famous Peterson Museum, is finished in a deep red color, but the differences don't stop there. The grille, for instance, features an egg crate design and is chromed, whereas the other car's grille consists only of vertical slats, and they are finished in a striking gold color, as are the wheels. Around back, the Peterson example has different taillights, a different rear license holder, and, back to the front again, a full-width front bumper. In contrast, the other example boasts a simpler look to the front, with only bumperettes instead. Arguably, these differences from the factory actually make each car a true one of one instead of a one of two. Needless to say, owning such a stylish and unique car does not come cheap. Sadly, the original prices paid are unknown, although there are recent auction records, at least for one car. Specifically, it's the black example with gold highlights which sold back in 2016 at an RM Sotheby's auction. The auction description describes how the car was restored by renowned specialist Mike Fennell, who is best known for his work on classic American cars and top-end hot rods. This, no doubt, helped the car achieve an impressive final price of $1,430,000, which was in line with RM Sotheby's lower-end estimates. As for what these examples would fetch today...
Welcome back, gearheads. In the 1990s, while the world drooled over Ferraris and Supras, some of the fastest cars wore beige paint and wire hubcaps. One of these could gap a Camaro at a red light, while looking like it just left a retirement home. These are the 15 unknown sleeper beasts of the 1990s. Let's go. Number 15, 1992, Honda Accord EXR. A car built for the suburbs, but tuned just enough to chase down a Prelude? Let's start the list with something that looks like it should be idling outside a dentist's office. Soft lines, modest wheels, and just enough chrome to whisper respectable, not fast. But buried under that restrained design was a variant that only Canadians had access to. A family sedan that wore a business suit but had a streak of rebellion. This unassuming four-door was powered by a 2.2-liter DOHC VTEC inline-4. The the same F22A engine lineage you'd find in sportier Hondas, but with a twist. The EXR trim brought upgrades that most people didn't even know existed. Producing around 145 horsepower and 137 pound-feet of torque, it wasn't a drag strip king, but it wasn't built to be. What made it interesting was how effortlessly it revved, how tightly it cornered for its class, and how surprisingly quick it could be in the right hands. The 0 to 60 miles per hour came in around 8.5 seconds, respectable for the early 90s, especially when the car looked like it belonged in a grocery store parking lot. The EXR trim packed four-wheel disc brakes, a tighter suspension, and even optional anti-lock brakes, rare back then. And unlike its American cousins, this trim came standard with some performance-minded goodies, including a 5-speed manual option that made all the difference. It didn't shout about its speed, it just quietly got the job done, pulling away from more aggressive cars with a kind of smug silence. But it wasn't perfect. The interior felt basic, with Honda's minimalist design ethos in full swing. Functional, but far from luxurious. And while the engine had personality, it lacked the raw numbers to impress those obsessed with straight-line dominance. On the outside, it was practically invisible. Great for a sleeper, less so for anyone craving attention. Still, that's the point. It wasn't made to be remembered, which is exactly why it deserves to be. A Canadian market special, hiding just enough performance under its skin to surprise anyone who assumed Honda Accord meant slow. Coming up next, a full-size American sedan that looked more like a retirement plan than a racing threat, but packed torque that could humble early Mustangs. Number 14, 1993 Buick Regal GS 3.8. A car built for retirement homes, but quick enough to spook a Camaro? Let's talk Buick. From the understated precision of a Canadian Honda, we now head into classic American territory, where bench seats, soft suspensions, and chrome accents reign. You'd never expect performance here, right? But behind the steering wheel of this next car, Grandpa might have been sitting on a secret. At first glance, the 1993 Buick Regal GS doesn't stir excitement. It's the kind of car you'd expect to see pulling into a pharmacy drive-thru, not revving at a stoplight. The styling was muted, even in GS trim, with flush headlights, a softly sloped nose, and body-colored trim that tried, and failed, to scream sporty. But beneath that quiet shell was GM's 3.8-liter V6, an engine with more grunt than anyone was expecting. This wasn't the Supercharged 3800 yet, that came later. But even in naturally aspirated form, it was a torque-heavy beast. With 170 horsepower and 225 pound-feet of torque, it could launch with surprising urgency. The 0 to 60 mile per hour time hovered around 8 seconds flat, which meant it wasn't just quicker than it looked. It was faster than many cars people thought were fast. Where the Buick really caught people off guard was in the mid-range. That torque came on early and pulled like a freight train. The GS badge wasn't just cosmetic either. This version featured a firmer suspension, a tighter steering rack, and disc brakes all around. Enough to keep it planted when you really pushed it, even if the interior still smelled like mothballs and Metamucil. But no car's perfect. Despite its torque, the Regal GS was paired with a 4-speed automatic that felt confused when pushed too hard. And while it could hustle in a straight line, the soft chassis tuning meant it wasn't exactly carving corners. Inside, Buick still leaned heavily into plushness, faux wood trim, digital gauges, and seats that felt like lazy boys on wheels. Sporty? Not really. Capable? Absolutely. That's what makes it such a good sleeper. No spoilers, no aggressive angles, just pure old-school grunt hiding under a vinyl roof. And the best part? Nobody ever saw it coming. And if that's just how we're starting this list, you'll want to see what's lurking further up. A luxury coupe so forgettable in design, you probably walked past one last week without noticing. But under the hood, it shared its heart with a Corvette. Number 13, 1994 Toyota Crown Royal Saloon. A chauffeured cruiser with lace seat covers, packing the engine of a legend? This Toyota might have been a car your uncle imported, which was accidentally fast. Coming off the plush but punchy Buick, we crossed the Pacific to meet something far more refined on the surface. This next car wasn't sold new in the US, but those who knew what to look for were quietly importing it. It was marketed to executives, politicians, and wealthy retirees in Japan. It rode like a cloud, wore doilies on the headrests, and whispered down the highway. But behind all the chrome and wood grain, it hid something serious. The 1994 Toyota Crown Royal Saloon is a sleeper in the truest sense. Luxury outside, performance deep beneath. Under its long, stately hood sat the 2JZGE, the naturally aspirated version of the engine that would become famous for powering the legendary Toyota Supra. While it didn't have a turbo, this inline-six still pushed 220 horsepower and around 210 pound-feet of torque. Smooth,